the peaceful town of Imodun, nestled in the heart of Yoruba land, life was vibrant and serene. The Ajala family stood as a beacon of prosperity and goodwill. Mr. Ajala, a well-respected banker, and Mrs. Ajala, a thriving importer and exporter, were adored by the townsfolk. Their generosity was legendary. Every year, as the dry season approached, the Ajala household distributed food, clothes, and other essentials to the needy. Their only child, Omoponmile, was a jewel to the community. A striking beauty with a promising future, she carried herself with a charm that mirrored the affection and attention showered upon her by her doting parents. But as a Yoruba adage goes, a house with unchecked cracks will eventually invite the lizard. Beneath their wealth and honor lay unaddressed vulnerabilities. Welcome to Afro African Tales. In the heart of Africa lies a treasure trove of lessons, wisdom, and unforgettable stories. Stories like that of Omoponmile, a shining star dimmed by choices, yet redeemed through resilience and love. Our channel brings you tales rich with African culture, brimming with the power of transformation and hope. From the bustling streets of Yoruba land to the echoes of redemption in Imodun, these stories remind us that even in darkness there is light. If this resonates with you, don't forget to like this video to support our storytelling mission. Comment below your favorite moments or lessons from today's story. Subscribe to Afro African Tales to join a community that celebrates the richness of African narratives. Thank you. Let's continue our story. The Ajala family's world shifted on a fateful Monday. The serene facade of Mr. Ajala's workplace was shattered when armed robbers stormed the bank, making away with cash and valuables. The heist had dire consequences. The bank shut its doors indefinitely, leaving all its employees, including Mr. Ajala, jobless. When he returned home that evening, he shared the grim news with his wife. Ever the optimist, he proposed using his severance package to start a small business. However, what began as a hopeful plan soon unraveled. The business struggled, and Mr. Ajala found himself unable to shoulder the family's expenses as he once had. Instead of becoming his pillar in these trying times, Mrs. Ajala, influenced by her circle of high society friends, began to grumble. She took on the role of the family's primary provider, but wielded her financial contribution as a weapon, belittling her husband and undermining his authority. Omoponmile, witnessing these dynamics, began to see her father as weak and incapable. Life in the Ajala household grew tense. Mr. Ajala, now a shadow of his former self, spent his days in quiet reflection, trying to piece together a plan for his family's survival. His once confident demeanor had given way to a subdued humility. Despite his best efforts to maintain peace, his wife's constant complaints chipped away at his spirit. Mrs. Ajao, the respected woman leader of the Central Church, observed the changes. Known for her wisdom and sharp intuition, she visited Mrs. Ajala one sunny afternoon. "Sister Ajala," she began gently, "I've noticed the strain in your home. Wealth comes and goes, but a united family is a fortress no storm can destroy. Respect your husband, even in his struggles, and watch over Omoponmile carefully. This is a crucial time in her life. The world outside is full of wolves in sheep's clothing." But Mrs. Ajala, blinded by pride and her desire to maintain appearances among her elite friends, dismissed the advice. "Ajao, I appreciate your concern, but I know how to handle my home," she replied curtly. Mrs. Ajal sighed deeply. Remember, the mother who refuses to bend the palm frond when it's young cannot complain when it grows crooked. She left, her words lingering in the air like an unanswered prayer. Omoponmile, once the pride of her parents, began to change. Her father noticed it first. Her once modest outfits gave way to flashy, revealing clothes, and her language became sharp and dismissive. Omoponmile, what is happening to you? Mr. Ajala asked one evening after dinner. This is not how we raised you. But before she could answer, Mrs. Ajala cut in, her tone defensive. Leave the girl alone. She's growing up and finding her way. If you had money to provide like before, she wouldn't need to fit in with her friends. The words cut deep. Omoponmile smirked, emboldened by her mother's support. Daddy, just let me live my life, she said, rising from the table and walking away. That night, Mr. Ajala stayed up late, praying for his daughter. He knew the path she was treading was dangerous, but with his wife's constant indulgence, his warnings fell on deaf ears. On a cool Friday evening, Omoponmile received an invitation to a party on campus. Her excitement was palpable as she shared the news with her mother. Big cars, big men, and big connections, Mama, she exclaimed. This is my chance to meet people who can change my life. Instead of cautioning her, Mrs. Ajala encouraged the outing. Go, my dear. But make sure you stand out. Wear that short red dress we bought last month. Mr. Ajala overheard the conversation and intervened. Omoponmile, you are not going anywhere tonight. Focus on your studies and stay safe. But his words carried no weight. Mrs. Ajala retorted, Don't kill her spirit. She deserves to enjoy herself. Isn't that what life is about? As darkness fell, Omoponmile and her friends dressed in their finest. The young men who came to pick them up arrived in flashy cars, their necks adorned with heavy gold chains that glinted under the streetlights. Daddy, don't wait up, Omoponmile called out as she climbed into one of the cars, ignoring her father's pleas to stay. The party was in full swing, the music loud and intoxicating. But what Omoponmile and her friends didn't know was that these men were no ordinary revelers. They were the very gang that had robbed the bank where Mr. Ajala once worked. That night, the police, having tracked the gang for months, raided the party. Chaos erupted. Screams and cries filled the air as officers rounded up everyone present. Omoponmile, along with her friends, was arrested on suspicion of aiding the criminals. News of the raid spread quickly in Imodan. By morning, whispers filled the market and homes. Have you heard? One woman asked another at the water pump. Omoponmile, the pride of the Ajala family, was arrested last night with criminals. When the police came knocking on the Ajala family's door, it felt like the world had crumbled beneath Mr. Ajala's feet. The officers explained that Omoponmile had been apprehended at a gathering of notorious thieves and was now being detained for questioning. Mrs. Ajala, initially in denial, screamed, "This is a mistake! My daughter is no criminal!" But as the officers handed over a list of the arrested individuals, her heart sank. Omoponmile's name was on it. At the police station, Omoponmile sat in a cell, her once vibrant eyes dull with fear and regret. She replayed her father's warnings in her mind, now realizing how right he had been. But it was too late. When her parents arrived, Omoponmile couldn't see her father's eyes. "Daddy, she began, but he raised a hand to silence her. "I told you," he said, his voice heavy with sorrow. "I told you to stay away from this path." Mrs. Ajala tried to defend her daughter. It's not her fault. She was influenced by those criminals. Mr. Ajala cut her off, his tone sharp. And who allowed her to associate with such people? Who encouraged her to go out when I said no? For the first time, Mrs. Ajala was speechless. The legal process moved swiftly. The evidence against the gang was overwhelming, and Omaponmal, by association, was implicated. She was charged with aiding and abetting criminals, a crime punishable by life imprisonment under the law. The trial brought the Ajala family's shame into public view. Friends and neighbors who once admired them now avoided them. How could such a thing happen to a family like theirs? People whispered. As the trial progressed, Omaponmal's cries of innocence were overshadowed by the damning testimonies of witnesses and the indisputable evidence linking her to the criminals. On the final day of the trial, the courtroom was packed. Omaponmal trembled as the judge read the verdict. For your involvement in organized crime, this court sentences you, Omaponmal Ajala, to life imprisonment. No, she screamed, tears streaming down her face. Mama, I hate you. Why didn't you guide me better? Why did you let me go? Mrs. Ajala collapsed to her knees, her own tears flowing freely. The weight of her daughter's words crushed her spirit. If I had known, she whispered, I should have listened. I should have done better. Mr. Ajala, though heartbroken, remained silent. His faith, though tested, kept him standing. Days turned into weeks, and the reality of Omaponmal's sentence settled in. Mrs. Ajala became a shadow of her former self, haunted by the choices she had made. She replayed Mrs. Ajala's warnings in her mind and realized how she had dismissed the advice that could have saved her family. She began visiting the prison, hoping to mend her broken relationship with her daughter. But Omaponmal's bitterness was palpable. It's too late, Mama, she said during one visit. I trusted you to guide me, and you failed. Meanwhile, Mr. Ajala focused on rebuilding his life. Though his heart ached for his daughter, he found solace in prayer and community service. His resilience inspired a few who had once doubted him. Baba Omaponmal, a neighbor said one day, you are a strong man. Despite everything, you hold your head high. He responded humbly, a storm doesn't last forever. I just pray for my family's healing. Inside the cold confines of the prison, Omaponmal's life was starkly different from the world she once knew. The echoes of metal gates, the harsh voices of wardens, and the daily routines of confinement replaced the laughter and freedom she had taken for granted. Among the inmates, Omaponmal met women from different walks of life, each with their own stories of regret and survival. One such woman was Mama Tawa, an elderly inmate who had spent decades in prison. She became a mentor to Omaponmal, offering wisdom that pierced through her bitterness. Young girl, Mama Tawa said one evening, life doesn't end here. You have the power to change, even in chains. But you must start by forgiving yourself and those who failed you. Omaponmal began to reflect on Mama Tawa's words. For the first time, she questioned her choices and the influence of her upbringing. She wrote letters to her father, pouring out her remorse and longing for his forgiveness. Daddy, one letter began, I know I let you down, but I hope you can still pray for me. I want to change. I want to make you proud, even if it's from here. When Mr. Ajala received the letter, he wept silently. Though his heart was heavy, he wrote back, assuring his daughter of his unwavering love and faith in her transformation. Outside the prison walls, Mrs. Ajala was a woman broken by guilt. She withdrew from her high society friends and sought solace in the church she once neglected. She often sat with Mrs. Ajao, who welcomed her without judgment. "Sister Ajala," Mrs. Ajao said one day, "it's never too late to make things right. The road to redemption is paved with humility and effort. Show your daughter through actions that you've changed." Determined to make amends, Mrs. Ajala began volunteering at the prison, helping other inmates with counseling and support. Though Omopon Mile was initially skeptical of her mother's transformation, she began to see sincerity in her efforts. During one visit, Omopon Mile confronted her mother. "Why now, Mama? Why didn't you guide me when I needed you most?" Tears streamed down Mrs. Ajala's face. "Because I was blind, my daughter. I let pride and the pursuit of wealth take priority over our family. I failed you and your father, but I'm here now, and I will never stop trying to earn your forgiveness." Omopon Mile's hardened heart began to soften. Mama Tawa's advice echoed in her mind. Change begins with forgiveness. Slowly, the walls between mother and daughter started to crumble. In the prison library, Omopon Mile discovered books on law, history, and self-development. Encouraged by Mama Tawa, she began studying diligently, determined to make the best of her circumstances. "Knowledge is freedom," Mama Tawa said. "Even if your body is confined, your mind can soar." Omopon Mile's progress caught the attention of the prison wardens, who recommended her for an inmate rehabilitation program. Through workshops and courses, she started gaining skills that brought purpose to her days. Back in Imodun, the community began rallying around the Ajala family. Inspired by Mr. Ajala's resilience and Mrs. Ajala's repentance, neighbors and church members extended their support. One day, a pastor visited the Ajala home. "Your story is a lesson for all of us," he said. "It shows the importance of family, forgiveness, and faith. Let's work together to bring Omopon Mile back, not just physically, but spiritually." Omopon Mile's life in prison began to change. Through the rehabilitation program, she found herself teaching literacy classes to other inmates. Many women, some older than her, looked up to her newfound discipline and determination. "Omopon Mile," Mama Tawa said one afternoon, watching her lead a session. "You're planting seeds in this place. Even in darkness, you're learning to shine. Hold on to this spark." The work gave Omopon Mile a sense of purpose. She wrote to her father about her efforts and thanked him for his prayers. "Daddy," she wrote, "I finally feel like I'm doing something right. I hope you're proud of me." Mrs. Ajala's transformation became evident to all. She now spent her days not in luxury, but in service. She volunteered at the church and organized outreach programs for troubled youth, hoping to guide them away from the mistakes her daughter had made. One day, she gathered a group of mothers at the church and shared her story. "I was blinded by pride and greed," she admitted, her voice trembling. "I failed my daughter because I didn't listen to the warnings around me. But I've learned that it's never too late to change." Her honesty resonated with the women, many of whom vowed to pay closer attention to their families. Weeks later, Omopon Mile received a letter from her mother. It was filled with apologies and heartfelt promises. "My daughter," it read, "I will spend the rest of my life proving my love for you. I am so proud of the woman you are becoming, even in the hardest of circumstances." Please forgive me for failing you, Omoponmile cried as she read the letter. For the first time, she felt a glimmer of hope that her family could heal. That night, she prayed for the strength to forgive fully, just as her father had always taught her. Impressed by Omoponmile's progress, the prison warden summoned her to his office. "You've shown remarkable growth," he said. "We believe in rewarding good behavior. There's a possibility of parole if you continue on this path." The news felt surreal. Could freedom really be on the horizon? Omoponmile didn't let herself get carried away, but she felt a renewed sense of purpose. When she wrote to her parents about the possibility of parole, their excitement was tempered with cautious optimism. "No matter what happens," Mr. Arjala wrote back, "remember that we love you and are proud of your journey." Back in Imodan, the Arjala family story became a catalyst for change. The church organized workshops for parents, teaching them the importance of nurturing their children and maintaining strong family bonds. Mrs. Ajao, the wise church leader, spoke at one such gathering. The story of the Arjalas reminds us that we must never take our roles as parents lightly. Discipline, love, and prayer are the pillars of a strong home. The Ajalas were no longer seen as a family to pity, but as a symbol of resilience and redemption. The possibility of parole became a beacon of hope for Omoponmile. However, it wasn't guaranteed. The warden made it clear her progress had to be consistent and her behavior exemplary. Omoponmile poured herself into her responsibilities in the prison. She volunteered for additional programs, became a mediator during inmate disputes, and even started writing a journal about her experiences and lessons learned. One evening, as she sat with Mama Tawa, she shared her dreams. "If I ever leave this place, I want to help girls like me, those who didn't have the guidance they needed. Maybe I can prevent someone else from making the same mistakes." Mama Tawa smiled, her wrinkled face soft with pride. "You're already doing that, child. The light you're creating here will shine beyond these walls." The Ajala family began to heal through shared faith and effort. Every Friday evening, Mr. and Mrs. Ajala visited the prison to see their daughter. During these visits, they would pray together, holding hands through the bars, their bond strengthening with each prayer. "Omoponmile," her father said during one visit, "we are praying for your release, but more importantly, we are praying for your continued growth. Whatever the future holds, remember you are deeply loved." Her mother, now humbled and wiser, often brought homemade food and small gifts to show her care. Though their relationship was still mending, Omoponmile began to see her mother's sincerity and let her walls down. After 2 years of consistent progress, Omoponmile was called to her first parole hearing. The process was nerve-wracking, with officials reviewing her records and asking probing questions about her transformation. "Why should we believe you've changed?" one board member asked sternly. Omoponmile took a deep breath. "Because I've learned the value of choices and consequences. My time here has taught me that freedom isn't just physical. It's about living a life of purpose and integrity. I've made it my mission to help others avoid the mistakes I made." Her heartfelt words left the room, silent. The board adjourned to deliberate, leaving her and her family to wait anxiously. Weeks later, the verdict arrived. Omoponmile was granted parole under strict conditions, including community service and regular check-ins with authorities. The day she walked out of prison, her parents were there to greet her. As Omoponmaile embraced her father, tears streaming down her face, she whispered, "Thank you for never giving up on me." Turning to her mother, she added, "And thank you for finding your way back to me." Mrs. Ajala held her daughter tightly, sobbing. "We'll walk this new path together," she promised. Life outside prison was both liberating and challenging. Omoponmaile struggled with the stigma of her past, but found strength in her family's unwavering support. She resumed her education, enrolling in a program focused on social work and youth advocacy. Her journal, filled with reflections from her time in prison, became the foundation of her mission. With the help of her parents and the church, she began organizing talks for young people, warning them about the dangers of peer pressure and poor choices. "Your story has power," her father reminded her. "Use it to light the way for others." One of Omoponmaile's greatest challenges was rebuilding her relationship with her community. Some people still viewed her with suspicion, but many were moved by her honesty and determination. At a church gathering, she stood before the congregation to share her testimony. "I stand here today, not as a perfect person, but as someone who has learned the hard way. I want to thank my parents and everyone who prayed for me. Without you, I wouldn't be here." Her words touched hearts, and slowly the walls of mistrust began to crumble. As Omoponmaile's influence grew, she partnered with local organizations to create a mentorship program for at-risk youth. Her efforts gained recognition, and she was invited to speak at events across the region. Meanwhile, her mother found a new purpose in supporting her daughter's initiatives. Together, they worked to rebuild not only their family, but also the community they had once let down. Mr. Ajala, proud and steadfast, became a quiet pillar of strength, reminding everyone of the power of faith and perseverance. Omoponmaile's newfound purpose brought her face to face with youths who reminded her of her younger self, eager for adventure, yet unaware of the traps that lay ahead. During one mentorship session, a young girl named Sewa confided, "I want to belong, but my friends say I need to prove myself by doing things I know are wrong." Omoponmaile saw herself in Sewa's tearful eyes. "Belonging doesn't mean losing yourself," she said gently. "Your true friends will never ask you to compromise your values. I made that mistake, and it cost me everything. You can choose a different path." Sewa's gratitude strengthened Omoponmaile's resolve. She realized that every life she touched was a step closer to reclaiming her own. Not everyone was ready to forgive and forget. Some members of the Emodan community whispered behind her back, questioning her sincerity. "People like her never change," one market woman muttered. "She's just pretending to be good." When Omoponmaile heard these comments, her heart sank. She turned to her father for advice. "People will always talk," Mr. Ajala said, resting a hand on her shoulder. "Your actions will speak louder than their words. Keep walking in truth, and time will reveal your heart." Encouraged, Omoponmaile chose to focus on her work, letting her deeds be her response. Mrs. Ajala had become one of Omoponmaile's strongest allies. The woman who once prioritized wealth and status over her family was now deeply committed to repairing the damage her choices had caused. She often accompanied Omoponmaile to community events, sharing her own story with parents. "I lost my way because I thought success was measured in material things," she would say. "But I've learned that true success is raising a family with love and guidance." Her vulnerability inspired many, and slowly she regained the respect of her peers. Omoponmile organized her first major event, a youth empowerment workshop titled Choices and Consequences. Held at the town hall, it featured speakers from various backgrounds, including former inmates, successful entrepreneurs, and counselors. As Omoponmile stepped onto the stage, she felt a wave of nerves, but the sight of her parents in the audience calmed her. "My name is Omoponmile Ajala," she began. "I'm not here as a perfect person, but as someone who has walked a dark path and found light. I'm here to tell you that it's never too late to make the right choice." Her speech received a standing ovation, and many attendees stayed afterward to thank her personally. The success of the workshop opened doors for Omoponmile. She was invited to neighboring towns to share her story and collaborate on similar programs. Her parents, though proud, cautioned her not to overextend herself. "Balance is important," her father reminded her. "Your journey is ongoing. Don't forget to take care of yourself." Omoponmile heeded his advice, ensuring she maintained time for her studies, her family, and her personal growth. One day, Omoponmile received a surprising visitor, one of the women who had criticized her at the market. "I misjudged you," the woman admitted, her head bowed. "I see now that you're truly trying to make a difference. I want to apologize for the things I said." Omoponmile smiled warmly. "Thank you. Your words mean a lot. I hope we can work together to help others in our community." The woman nodded, and from that day, she became one of Omoponmile's most vocal supporters. Omoponmile's influence began to spread beyond Imodun. Stories of her transformation and dedication reached regional leaders who invited her to collaborate on state-level youth programs. Her next project was ambitious, a mentorship network connecting ex-convicts who had reformed with at-risk youth in rural areas. "Each of us has a story," she explained during a planning meeting. "And those stories can help young people understand that the choices they make today will shape their future." The program was called Rays of Hope, and its launch event brought together former inmates, parents, educators, and government officials. Omoponmile's speech once again resonated deeply. "Every mistake has consequences, but every person has the potential for redemption," she said. "Let us be the bridge between past failures and future success for our youth." Back in Imodun, Omoponmile continued to work on mending relationships with those who still doubted her. She made it a point to visit the market often, helping the traders and engaging them in conversations. "I know trust takes time," she said to one skeptical trader, "but I'm here to stay. I won't stop trying to prove that I've changed." Her persistence paid off. Slowly, even her harshest critics began to see her sincerity. By involving them in her programs, she turned former skeptics into allies. Mr. Ajala, once broken by the weight of his family's challenges, now stood tall as a proud father. He often accompanied Omoponmile to her events, introducing himself humbly as the father of this remarkable young woman. During one such event, a reporter approached him. "How does it feel to see your daughter transform her life and help others?" Mr. Ajala smiled, tears glistening in his eyes. "It feels like grace," he said. "She's teaching me that no matter how dark the night, the dawn always comes." As Omoponmile's programs grew, so did the challenges. Balancing her studies, personal life, and leadership responsibilities became increasingly difficult. Some partners questioned her ability to manage such a large initiative. One day, after a particularly stressful meeting, she confided in her mother. "Mama, what if I fail? What if I'm not strong enough for this?" Mrs. Ajala took her daughter's hands in hers. "You've already overcome so much, my child. Leadership isn't about never falling. It's about rising each time you do. Lean on those who support you and remember why you started." In Imodun, the impact of Omoponmal's work became undeniable. Crime rates among youth began to drop, and more families participated in mentorship programs. Her story inspired parents to engage more actively in their children's lives. The church, led by Mrs. Ajao, organized a special service to celebrate the positive changes. "We are witnessing the fruits of forgiveness and perseverance," Mrs. Ajao said. "This is what happens when a community chooses hope over despair." Omoponmal's efforts earned her recognition at a national level. She was nominated for a prestigious Youth Leadership Award, celebrating individuals who had turned their lives around and made significant contributions to society. When she won, she dedicated the award to her parents and the people of Imodun. "This is not just my story," she said during her acceptance speech. "It's a story of faith, family, and the power of second chances." Despite her growing responsibilities, Omoponmal returned to campus to complete her degree. Balancing her advocacy work and studies was challenging, but she excelled, determined to lead by example. Her presence on campus inspired her peers. She organized seminars for students, sharing her journey and urging them to make wise choices. "Your future isn't written yet," she often said. "You hold the pen." Omoponmal's initiatives attracted the attention of international organizations. Representatives from a global youth empowerment group visited Imodun to learn from her programs. "Your work is extraordinary," one delegate said. "We'd love to collaborate and expand your mentorship model to other countries." This opportunity was both exciting and daunting, but Omoponmal embraced it, knowing it could amplify her impact. Omoponmal's collaboration with the Global Youth Empowerment Group led to her first international trip. She was invited to a conference in Nairobi, Kenya, to present the Race of Hope mentorship model. Stepping onto the stage in a room filled with leaders, educators, and activists, she felt both nervous and excited. "This journey began in a small town called Imodun," she began, her voice steady. "It is proof that even in the most unexpected places, change can take root and grow into something extraordinary." Her presentation received a standing ovation. Delegates from different countries approached her, eager to learn and adapt her methods to their own communities. The conference sparked new ideas. Omoponmal partnered with organizations in Kenya, Ghana, and South Africa to establish regional mentorship programs. These initiatives focused on empowering young people through storytelling, education, and skill building. While traveling across Africa, Omoponmal marveled at the diversity of cultures and challenges. Yet, the common thread was clear. Every community had youths yearning for guidance and opportunities. "It's humbling," she wrote in her journal, "to see how a story that began in my darkest moment is now bringing light to so many." Back in Imodun, Omoponmal continued mentoring local youth. One of her mentees, a boy named Tonde, had been on the verge of joining a gang when he attended one of her workshops. "I thought there was no way out," Tunde admitted during a one-on-one session. But your story made me think. If you could change, maybe I can too. Omoponmil guided Tunde toward vocational training, and he eventually started a small tailoring business. At his workshop opening, he invited her as the guest of honor. "Miss Omoponmil," he said, handing her a framed portrait he had sewn into fabric. "This is for you. You gave me hope when I had none." Despite her achievements, Omoponmil often felt overwhelmed. The demands of managing multiple programs, traveling, and maintaining her personal life weighed heavily on her. One evening, during a rare quiet moment with her father, she confided, "Daddy, I feel like I'm carrying the world on my shoulders." Mr. Ajala smiled gently. "Even the strongest trees need deep roots to stand tall. Remember to take time to nourish yourself, my dear. You don't have to do it all alone." His words reminded her of the importance of self-care and delegation. She began empowering her team to take on more responsibilities, allowing her to focus on strategic planning. Omoponmil's programs began connecting people across borders. Through virtual sessions and cultural exchange visits, youths from different African countries shared their experiences and learned from one another. During one session, a girl from Ghana shared her struggles with peer pressure. A boy from South Africa responded, "We may live in different places, but we face the same battles. We can overcome them together." These exchanges reinforced Omoponmile's belief that unity and understanding were key to addressing the challenges faced by young people worldwide. While Omoponmile was transforming lives, her mother found herself inspired by her daughter's resilience. Mrs. Ajala decided to pursue a long-forgotten dream of hers, starting a women's support group. She named it Grace Restored, and its mission was to empower mothers to build stronger families through faith, mentorship, and community support. During the first meeting, Mrs. Ajala shared her story. "I was blinded by ambition and almost lost everything," she said. "But my daughter's strength reminded me that it's never too late to start anew." The group quickly grew, becoming a cornerstone of Imodun's community. Omoponmile's partnership with the Global Youth Empowerment Group bore fruit when Rays of Hope programs were launched in Kenya, Ghana, and Tanzania. Each region adapted the model to suit their unique cultural and societal challenges, and Omoponmile frequently traveled to support their efforts. During a visit to Ghana, she was struck by a mentorship session led by a local leader. A young boy stood and said, "You don't just give us advice, you give us courage. Thank you for seeing us." His words stayed with her, reminding her that her mission was about more than programs. It was about human connection. The rapid expansion came with logistical challenges. Managing funding, recruiting volunteers, and ensuring the program stayed true to their purpose. Omoponmile often spent late nights reviewing reports and strategizing with her team. One evening, her lead coordinator, Chidi, suggested, "Why not build a centralized training hub in Imodun? We could train mentors from across Africa right here, in the place where it all began." The idea sparked excitement. Omoponmile began drafting plans for the Hope Center, a space dedicated to mentorship, skill building, and cross-cultural learning. To fund the Hope Center, Omoponmile launched a community fundraiser in Imodun. Residents, inspired by her story, contributed whatever they could. Traders donated a percentage of their earnings, and young people volunteered their time to help with construction. I remember when Omoponmile was lost, one elder said, during a planning meeting. Now she's leading us. We owe it to her to support this vision. The collective effort was a testament to the unity her journey had inspired in the community. After months of hard work, the Hope Center was ready. The opening ceremony was a grand affair, attended by community members, international partners, and government officials. Omoponmile stood before the crowd, her voice filled with emotion. "This center is not just a building," she said. "It's a beacon of possibility. It's a place where dreams are nurtured and lives are transformed." As she cut the ribbon, applause filled the air. The Hope Center was a symbol of how one person's redemption could lead to collective progress. One afternoon, as Omoponmile oversaw a workshop at the Hope Center, she was approached by an unexpected visitor, Sewa, the young girl she had mentored early in her journey. "Sewa!" Omoponmile exclaimed, embracing her. "I came to thank you," Sewa said, smiling. "I graduated from college last month, and it's all because you believed in me when I didn't believe in myself." Tears welled up in Omoponmile's eyes. "You did the hard work, Sewa. I'm so proud of you." Their reunion was a reminder of the ripple effect of compassion and mentorship. Mr. Ajala, now retired, spent much of his time volunteering at the Hope Center. He became a father figure to many of the youth, offering guidance and wisdom. One day, during a quiet moment with Omoponmile, he said, "Seeing you fulfill this mission has healed something in me. You've given me back my purpose." Omoponmile held his hand, grateful for the strength he had shown during their darkest times. "You were my first mentor, Daddy. I learned resilience from you." Despite her success, Omoponmile struggled with personal sacrifices. She had little time for herself, and her relationships sometimes felt strained. A close friend, Adeola, urged her to take a break. "You've poured so much into others, Omoponmile. It's time to pour into yourself." Taking Adeola's advice, Omoponmile scheduled a short retreat. The time away allowed her to reflect, recharge, and plan her next steps with renewed clarity. The mentorship model Omoponmile had created gained international recognition. She was invited to the United Nations to speak about the importance of community-driven solutions to youth empowerment. Standing before a global audience, she said, "Every young person deserves a chance to thrive, no matter where they come from. Let us invest in them, not as liabilities, but as assets to the world." Her words resonated, and partnerships blossomed, further expanding the reach of Rays of Hope. At the Hope Center, Omoponmile often met with individuals whose lives had taken dramatic turns because of the mentorship programs. One story stood out, a young woman named Adora, who had been on the brink of dropping out of school due to financial struggles. Through Rays of Hope, Adara received not only financial assistance, but also the guidance to channel her love for technology into a career. She developed an app to connect students with scholarship opportunities. "I wanted to give back the way you gave to me," Adara told Omoponmile. "You showed me that no problem is too big to solve with the right support." Her app went on to help hundreds of students, becoming a symbol of what empowered youth could achieve. While Omoponmile continued to make waves globally, her mother, Mrs. Ajala, focused on strengthening the bonds within their family. She reached out to relatives who had distanced themselves during the family's troubled times. One evening, she hosted a family reunion, inviting even those who had been critical in the past. As a family, we've made mistakes, she said during a heartfelt speech. But today, I want us to celebrate the lessons we've learned and the love that binds us. The gathering was a turning point, bringing healing and unity to the extended family. With fame came scrutiny. Some critics questioned Omoponmiel's rapid rise and accused her of benefiting financially from her programs. While the accusations were baseless, they weighed heavily on her. "I've worked so hard to rebuild my life," she confided to Chidi. "Why do some people only see the worst?" Chidi reassured her. "Success attracts both admirers and detractors. Let your work speak louder than their words." Determined to maintain transparency, Omoponmiel implemented stricter financial audits and invited external reviews of her organization. The findings vindicated her, silencing her critics. Amid her busy life, Omoponmiel began forming a close bond with Ayotunde, a journalist who had covered her story extensively. Their shared passion for storytelling and social impact brought them together. One evening, after a long day at the Hope Center, Ayotunde said, "You've inspired so many people, but who inspires you?" Omoponmiel paused, then smiled. "My family, my mentors, and the youth I work with. And maybe you." Their relationship blossomed gradually, bringing warmth and balance to Omoponmiel's life. To strengthen her leadership skills, Omoponmiel enrolled in a global leadership fellowship. The program connected her with changemakers from around the world, exposing her to diverse perspectives and innovative approaches. During one session, she shared her journey, emphasizing the role of community support. "I stand here today, not because of my strength alone, but because of the countless hands that lifted me when I fell." Her humility and authenticity earned her the respect of her peers, many of whom sought her advice on starting similar programs in their countries. Although Omoponmiel's work had taken her far from Imodun, she never forgot her roots. She initiated an annual Imodun Homecoming Festival, celebrating the town's culture, history, and progress. The festival featured performances, food stalls, and storytelling sessions. Its highlight was the Circle of Change, where individuals shared how mentorship had transformed their lives. During one session, an elderly woman stood and said, "Omoponmiel, you are proof that even a broken pot can pour water when mended. You've made us proud." Mrs. Ajala's women's support group, Grace Restored, became one of the most impactful initiatives in the region. She organized workshops on parenting, financial literacy, and health, empowering women to build stronger families. At one session, a participant said, "You've taught us that being a mother isn't just about providing, it's about nurturing and guiding." Mrs. Ajala's journey from a lost mother to a community leader inspired many, reinforcing the importance of second chances. Years after its inception, the Hope Center had become a hub of innovation and empowerment. It housed training programs, a library, and a community garden. Omoponmiel's vision of a space where lives could be transformed was now a reality. Standing in the garden one evening, she reflected on the journey. "From darkness to light," she whispered to herself. "This is what grace looks like." Omoponmiel's influence extended beyond Africa as her work caught the attention of global leaders and philanthropists. She was invited to a summit in Geneva to collaborate on strategies for youth empowerment on a global scale. During a panel discussion, she shared, "Mentorship is a universal need. Whether it's Imodan, Nairobi, or New York, young people need guidance to navigate the complexities of life. Her ideas resonated, leading to partnerships with international organizations. Together, they launched the Global Mentorship Initiative, a platform connecting mentors and mentees across continents. Despite her global achievements, Omoponmile grappled with feelings of self-doubt. She often questioned whether she was doing enough or if her work had truly made a difference. During one such moment, Ayotunde reminded her, "Your impact isn't just measured by the numbers. It's in the lives you've touched. Never forget that." His words brought comfort, and Omoponmile began journaling daily, reflecting on the stories of those whose lives had been changed through her efforts. One of the Hope Center's satellite locations in a neighboring town faced backlash from local authorities, who believed the programs were disrupting traditional structures. Determined not to let this hinder her work, Omoponmile met with community leaders to address their concerns. She emphasized the importance of preserving cultural values while adapting to modern challenges. Through dialogue and compromise, the center was allowed to continue operating, becoming a bridge between tradition and progress. A natural disaster struck a nearby region, leaving many families displaced. Omoponmile quickly mobilized her network to provide relief. She transformed the Hope Center into a temporary shelter and organized counseling sessions for affected youths. "I lost everything," a boy named Kelechi told her. "I don't know how to start again." Omoponmile replied, "Sometimes starting over is the beginning of something greater. We'll walk this path together." Her efforts not only brought comfort, but also highlighted the center's adaptability in addressing urgent needs. As Omoponmile and Ayotunde's relationship deepened, he planned a special evening to propose. He arranged for a dinner under the stars at the Hope Center's garden, a place that symbolized Omoponmile's journey. After a heartfelt speech about their shared values and dreams, he knelt and asked, "Will you let me walk this journey with you as your partner in life?" Tears streamed down her face as she said, "Yes, Ayotunde. Together we can accomplish even more." Their engagement was a moment of joy, celebrated by family, friends, and the community. The wedding was a grand celebration, blending tradition with modern elegance. It was held in Imodun, with the entire community invited to partake in the festivities. During her vows, Omoponmile said, "You've shown me that love is not only about companionship, but also about shared purpose. Together, we'll continue to shine light in dark places." The ceremony was a symbol of unity, not just between two individuals, but between their collective dreams. As a married couple, Omoponmile and Ayotunde launched a storytelling initiative called Echoes of Change. The project collected and published stories of individuals overcoming adversity, aiming to inspire a global audience. One of the first stories featured was that of a young boy who had escaped child labor to become a teacher thanks to mentorship programs. The book gained widespread acclaim, amplifying the voices of those often unheard. Omoponmile and Ayotunde welcomed their first child, a daughter they named Ireti, meaning hope. Holding her baby for the first time, Omoponmile whispered, "You are the embodiment of everything we've worked for. Hope for a better tomorrow." Becoming a mother brought new perspectives, inspiring her to focus on programs for young mothers and children. Motherhood transformed Omoponmile's perspective, deepening her empathy and inspiring her to expand her initiatives. she launched a program called Nurture the Future, aimed at supporting young mothers with parenting workshops, healthcare access, and career mentorship. During one of the workshops, a young mother named Tayo shared, "I thought my dreams had to end when I became a mother. This program has shown me that motherhood can be a new beginning." Omoponmilo smiled, recognizing her own journey reflected in Tayo's words. Balancing her growing family and her mission was not without its challenges. Late nights at the Hope Center sometimes left Omoponmile longing for more time with Ayotunde and Ereti. Ayotunde, ever supportive, reminded her, "We're building something bigger than ourselves, but never forget, we're your foundation." Inspired, Omoponmile began scheduling dedicated family time, ensuring her loved ones always felt prioritized amidst her busy life. Omoponmile's mother, Mrs. Ajala, became a key figure in Nurture the Future, mentoring young mothers with her hard-earned wisdom. Her transformation from a woman once blinded by societal pressures to a nurturing guide inspired many. One evening, Mrs. Ajala shared her story with the mothers, saying, "I lost my way once, but love brought me back. Let your love for your children guide you, and you will never go astray." Her authenticity created a ripple effect, encouraging others to reflect on their own lives. Omoponmile received a visit from an international philanthropist, Fatima Karim, who expressed admiration for her work. "Your grassroots approach is exactly what the world needs," Fatima said. They discussed a partnership to establish Hope Village, a residential and training facility for at-risk youth. Fatima pledged significant funding, and the project was set to launch in multiple African countries. Omoponmile's dream of expanding her reach while staying true to her principles was becoming a reality. One day, while traveling to oversee a Hope Village site, Omoponmile's car narrowly avoided a collision. The experience shook her deeply, reminding her of the fragility of life. Reflecting later, she wrote in her journal, "Every day is a gift. If I am still here, there is more to do." The incident strengthened her resolve to live purposefully and to cherish every moment with her family and community. At the Hope Center, a group of young mentees proposed a tech-driven initiative called Hope Connect. The platform aimed to connect youths with mentors globally, providing real-time guidance and resources. Impressed by their ingenuity, Omoponmile secured funding to develop the platform. Within months, Hope Connect became a vital tool, linking thousands of youths with life-changing opportunities. "You've taught us to dream," one of the developers said at the launch event. "This is our way of giving back." Despite her achievements, not everyone supported Omoponmile's initiatives. A local politician accused her of undermining traditional values and inciting rebellion among the youth. Undeterred, she met with community elders to clarify her intentions. "I am not here to dismantle our traditions," she said. "I am here to ensure that our youth thrive within them." Her sincerity won their trust, and the elders became her allies, promoting her work in their villages. Omoponmile initiated a legacy program at the Hope Center, where elders shared their stories and wisdom with the youth. During one session, Mr. Ajala recounted his life lessons, emphasizing the importance of integrity and resilience. "No matter how hard life hits you, stand firm," he said. His words resonated deeply, reminding everyone of the power of intergenerational learning. Omoponmile's work was recognized with the prestigious Global Humanitarian Award. At the ceremony in London, she dedicated the award to her family, mentors, and the youth she served. "This is not my achievement alone," she said. "It belongs to everyone who believes in the power of second chances and the boundless potential within us all." The recognition bolstered her efforts, attracting more support for her initiatives. The construction of Hope Village was a monumental task. Designed as a sanctuary for at-risk youth, it featured residential housing, schools, vocational training centers, and recreational spaces. Omoponmile worked closely with architects and social workers to ensure the village met both practical and emotional needs. She often visited the site, engaging with the workers and sharing the vision behind the project. "This isn't just a place," she told the team. "It's a fresh start for those who thought they had none." When Hope Village opened, the community gathered to celebrate. The first group of residents included orphans, former street children, and young people escaping cycles of violence. Among the first residents of Hope Village was a teenager named Ifeanyi. He had spent years as a pickpocket to survive after losing his parents. At the village, Ifeanyi learned carpentry, a skill that gave him purpose and income. During a showcase of the students' work, he presented a hand-carved chair, saying, "This chair represents my journey, broken but mended." His story became a symbol of the transformative power of Hope Village, inspiring others to join its programs. Mrs. Ajala often visited Hope Village to mentor the young residents. Watching the joy and hope radiate from the children, she couldn't help but reflect on her own journey. One evening she spoke to the group. "I once lost my way as a mother, but through my daughter, I've learned that redemption is possible for anyone willing to change." Her vulnerability endeared her to the youth, who began calling her Mama Hope. As Hope Village began expanding to other regions, Omoponmile faced logistical and cultural challenges. Each community had unique needs, requiring her team to adapt their approach. In one region, a misunderstanding arose over the use of land for a new village. The local chief initially opposed the project, fearing it would disrupt his people's way of life. Omoponmile met with him personally, listening to his concerns and explaining how the initiative could empower his community. Her respect and humility won him over, and he not only approved the project but also became its advocate. One day, while attending a conference, Omoponmile encountered Tunde, one of her childhood friends from Imodun. Tunde had faced his own struggles, battling addiction before finding recovery through mentorship. Seeing him again reminded Omoponmile of the interconnectedness of their journeys. Together, they discussed ways to support individuals recovering from addiction, launching a new arm of Hope Village focused on rehabilitation. Omoponmile and Ayotunde welcomed their second child, a son they named Olusola, meaning, "God has blessed me." Their home became a balance of joy and responsibility, with Ireti embracing her role as an older sister. Parenthood deepened Omoponmile's drive to create a world where every child had the opportunity to thrive. "Each child is a reminder of why we do this work," she told Ayotunde, "to give them a brighter future." Omoponmile launched a wisdom series at Hope Village, inviting elders to share their life lessons with the youth. One session featured Mr. Ajala, who spoke about resilience and faith. "Young people," he said, "never let temporary setbacks define you. You can always rise again." His words resonated deeply, sparking a renewed sense of determination among the residents. a false rumor circulated that funds from Hope Village were being misused. The accusations caused a stir, with donors questioning the transparency of the organization. Omoponmile addressed the issue head-on, commissioning an independent audit and hosting a public meeting to share the results. The audit not only cleared her name, but also highlighted the efficiency and impact of her programs. The ordeal strengthened her resolve to maintain the highest standards of accountability. One of Omoponmile's earliest mentees, Bissy, returned to Hope Village as a mentor. Now a successful entrepreneur, Bissy shared her journey with the residents. "I was once sitting where you are, unsure of my future," she said. "But someone believed in me, and that made all the difference. Now it's my turn to believe in you." Her return marked a full circle moment, reinforcing the importance of paying it forward. Omoponmile was invited to speak at the United Nations, sharing her insights on youth empowerment. Her speech emphasized the importance of investing in the next generation. "Every child has potential," she said, "but potential needs nurturing. Let's be the mentors who guide them to greatness." Her words received a standing ovation, further elevating her profile as a global changemaker. The impact of Omoponmile's initiatives began to manifest in unexpected ways. Youth who had been mentored at Hope Village started their own community projects. One group built a literacy center in a rural town, while another launched a clean water initiative for underserved communities. They called themselves Seeds of Hope, inspired by Omoponmile's teachings. At their inaugural meeting, they invited Omoponmile to speak. "You are proof that the light we ignite in others can shine brighter than we ever imagined," she said with pride. One evening, Omoponmile received a letter from one of the girls who had been arrested with her all those years ago. The woman, now a teacher, wrote about how that experience had been a turning point in her life. "I hated you then for exposing my flaws," the letter read. "But now I see you were a mirror reflecting what I needed to change." Omoponmile reached out, and they reconnected, sharing their journeys and finding closure in the process. Omoponmile began collaborating with faith leaders to create a program called Faith in Action, which integrated spiritual teachings with practical mentorship. At one event, she reminded the audience, "Faith without works is like a tree without fruit. Let us not only pray, but also act to uplift those around us." The initiative gained widespread support, uniting people of various backgrounds in a shared mission of service. One of the Hope Village locations faced severe flooding, threatening to displace the residents. Omoponmile, Ayotunde, and a team of volunteers worked tirelessly to relocate everyone to a temporary shelter. Despite the chaos, Omoponmile's calm leadership reassured everyone. "We'll rebuild stronger," she promised. True to her word, the village was reconstructed with improved infrastructure, becoming a model for disaster resilience. To celebrate the 10th anniversary of the first Hope Center, Omoponmile organized a grand event, inviting everyone who had been part of the journey. During the ceremony, she unveiled a statue in honor of her late father, Mr. Ajala, inscribed with the words, "In resilience, we find hope." Tears filled her eyes as she spoke. "My father taught me the value of integrity, even in the darkest times. This is his legacy." As Ireti and Olusola grew older, they began participating in their parents' work. Ireti showed an interest in storytelling, while Olusola loved helping with the technical aspects of Hope Connect. One evening, Ireti asked, "Mama, why do you do all this?" Omoponmile smiled and said, "Because every life matters, and every child deserves a chance to shine." Their involvement assured Omoponmile and Ayotunde that the future of their mission was in capable hands. Omoponmile's journey came full circle when she was invited to speak at an international conference for mothers. Her topic was the power of nurturing dreams. "I was once a daughter who misunderstood her parents," she began. "But through grace, forgiveness, and the relentless love of a mother, I found my path." She concluded with a heartfelt plea. "Mothers, guide your children with wisdom and love. Stand by them, even when they falter. In their success lies your legacy." The audience erupted in applause, and Omoponmile knew her message had reached hearts far and wide. And so, the story of Omoponmile reminds us of life's most profound truths. From the cracks of pride and misguidance to the blossoming of redemption and purpose, this tale echoes the essence of African wisdom. No storm lasts forever, and every fall is an opportunity to rise stronger. At Afro African Tales, we celebrate stories like this, not just for their drama and emotion, but for the lessons they carry for all of us. Whether it's the resilience of a father, the awakening of a mother, or the transformation of a child, every thread in this tale weaves into a tapestry of hope and redemption. If you've learned something from Omoponmile's journey, don't stop here. Like this video to share its wisdom. Comment below on what resonated with you the most. Subscribe to Afro African Tales to keep discovering the rich stories that define us as Africans and as humans. Thank you for watching, and remember, every tale holds a lesson, and every lesson has the power to transform. Until next time, keep the spirit of storytelling alive.